Good morning, Elizabeth. You're the first visual I see, so you get the first hello. Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
Well, at least it's not too early. Are you from the Bay Area, or are you just like the 49ers?
I have family that lives in the Bay Area.
Okay.
My mom's family.
Okay. Yeah, I was there for 8 years.
Ah,
Yeah. So I got to see the Oakland A's when they won the championship. I got to see the 49ers when they won the Super Bowl. Yeah. But now I'm a Virginianite.
uh-huh.
Let's see. Let's decrease the music here. Okay, one person. All right. Oh. All right, so 11:11. So we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome to Psych 200. And so we're going to spend the majority of today going over the syllabus and doing an introduction, covering any concerns that you might have. Uh, oh, Lamish, hey, I think we have.
How are you?
How are you?
Good.
Hey, good. So yeah, so we'll maybe get into chapter one a little bit, but more importantly, I want to make sure that you're aware of everything that's going to be expected of you for the semester. And I've crafted the syllabus to be pretty informative. So we'll walk through that, make sure if there are any questions, you get those answered. I'll also cover the way the class is structured for, exams and for assignments and all of that. I actually went in and populated the syllabus this morning, so you should have the latest version that will allow you to also have an up-to-date schedule. So we'll take a look at that and we'll go through all of those things. So just as a brief background, as I shared with the other classes, I have a rather eclectic background. I mean, I did active duty and National Guard for the military for a total of 22 years. I then, during that same time, I got my first degree in computer science. So I was a computer programmer for a few years. Then I did a degree in business management and administration, and I took on some managerial roles. And then, of course, being dissatisfied or not fully satisfied, I did my master's in organizational development and behavior. And still being not completely satisfied, I did my PhD in industrial organizational psychology. So whether you are an engineer or a nursing major, an English major, whatever you are, we can probably have some robust conversations and talk about how the theories that we're going to discuss over the semester apply. And more importantly, what I think will be evident is that you will start to recognize why you have varying levels of interactions with people, some of those being pleasant, some of those being not so pleasant. If you are a parent, you will also have some insight into how you might modify or adjust raising your children if you don't already have that under control. And of course, for those who are in relationships or seeking relationships, you'll also get some insights into how our thoughts drive our behavior, and then our behavior, of course, as a result of our decisions, changes our experiences, and those experiences, of course, become the foundation for future decisions. And so we'll take a look at all of that and see how it fits. Now, a couple of things. and thank you for muting. However, if you have a question or if you have a comment, you can either type that in the chat room or you can unmute yourself and ask your question verbally. I'm okay with either, as long as it doesn't become disruptive. For those of you, and I don't see any as of yet, but any of you that maybe signs into the class based on using your cell phone or a device that does not show up with your name, if please always add to the chat room. So if it's iPhone or Droid or whatever it is, put in the chat what your name is, because I use the text from the class to determine who has been in attendance. I will share that all of the classes will be recorded. So there's nothing that I will say that I'm ashamed of having on a recording. So all of the classes will be recorded. So if you ever do miss a class, you can listen to the recording and you will capture all of the information that we've discussed. I will also test your attendance. Now, of course, I can see a lot of you, but I don't see all of you. So periodically, I will ask questions in the class, and they will pretty much be one-word answers or yes, no. But that's my way of gauging that you're still actively engaged in the class for the hour and 20 minutes. Otherwise, I have too much experience with someone logging in, not necessarily turning on their video, but then they leave the classroom and only show up at the end to check out. So I will periodically ask questions for you to respond to on the chat room. And I would like for you to type your answer on the chat so that I have a record of it. And then I will download the text from the class, and that will be my way of taking attendance. Okay, so that works there. So let's see, what else? Let's see. Yep, I've been teaching at Nova for 2 years, but I've been teaching at the collegiate level for 12. And I teach at Nova as well as the Professional School of Psychology for students who are getting their PhDs in psychology. So busy, but it's a good busy. So any initial questions before we jump into the syllabus and take a look at those things? No? Okay. Yeah, I'm a cognitive behaviorist, so I can look at your expressions and tell whether or not you have a question. The majority of you anyhow. All right, so let me call up the syllabus and then we'll go through that. We'll do the syllabus and then I will show you a video that will be the start of our class to get you sort of jazzed up. And then we'll probably jump just a little into chapter 1. So I will share that as soon as it is loaded. All right, so share that with you now. Okay, so here's the syllabus. I'll make it a little bit larger. And so this, of course, you can download this. It's on the page for Canvas, so you can download it there. It's also in the files section of Canvas. So either place you can download it and keep a copy of it. Now, what you will also find on the files section are all of the PowerPoints. All of the PowerPoints that we're going to use for the semester, those are also in the files section under lecture files, either lecture files or PowerPoint files. You can, for some of you, I mean, some of you may like to take notes on just regular paper. Some of you might like to use the PowerPoints, so you can print those out as notes pages and take those notes. Additionally, what will probably be good information is that 95% of the exams will come from the PowerPoints. Now, the text or the textbook, there will be some additional information that we may not cover in class. So I keep the right to add 5% of the test from areas in the text that we may not get to. So if you're looking to do really well in the class, then it might be advantageous to study the PowerPoints, take notes on the PowerPoints, and or get the textbook so that you can read supplemental information. But all of that, again, is available to you on Canvas under the File section. My email is shown there, bhumphrey@nvcc.edu. I will always, I check emails every day except the weekends. So I will always try to answer any email that you send within 24 hours. Very seldom will I not meet that requirement. And if I do, I will definitely have it to you or have a response prior to the following day. We'll talk about the textbook in a moment. So that I can see the chat room. Okay. So the textbook, well, let me say this. I will start the class around 11. So for any of you who have a question before the class, by my starting it at 11, if you have something that you'd like to discuss, if there are questions about the things we covered previously, you'll have an opportunity to do that. Because after we finish this class, I have another class, a Psych 230. So I don't spend a lot of time at the end of the class, but I will give you 10 to 15 minutes at the beginning or the end to answer any questions that you have. So the 12th edition is fine. If you've got the 12th or 13th edition, there's very little nuance changes between those editions. So whatever you have will work. That edition is fine. So Psychology in Action by Kay Huffman and Kay Dowdell. So the 2015, but again, if you get the 11th, 12th, or 13th edition, you'll be okay for the book. If you are a psychology major, you may want to hold on to the book, so you may want to purchase it outright. If you're not a psychology major and you're using this just as an elective or a general course, then of course you can rent them for about 30 to 40% less than what the book would cost. And you can rent it, and generally the rentals are for 4 months, so you would have it for the entire semester before needing to return it. But that's the textbook, and that's what we'll use for the class. As I stated, we'll use Zoom because, of course, all of the class is virtual. But I have also, let's see, let me show you quickly on the website or on the Canvas site. And I'll need to share that with you as well. So all of the Zoom meetings are here. And so you don't need to keep a record of anything. You simply go to the site and you can open up, and it covers all the way through December 14th. So every one of those is there. So that should make it easier for you to get into the meeting without having to write anything down. Additionally, as I said before, I record all of the meetings. So since all the meetings are recorded, now I found that one of the other classes, we finished the class yesterday, and where it should have the recordings, the cloud recordings on Canvas, it didn't populate it there. So after we finish the class, I will create a YouTube video of the class, and I will send the link out through email. I'll send a link out to everyone with that link for YouTube. So for those of you who would like to watch the hour lecture over, or to pick up certain things that I may have said that you missed in your notes, then you'll have the opportunity to do that as well. Let's see. Oh, I do have a couple of notes from yesterday. If you are participating in the class, and hopefully you will get enough energy out of the class that you won't drop it, but if you decide to, September 10th is the last day to withdraw from the class and get a full refund. October 30th is the last day to withdraw without a grade, without being assigned a grade. And for those who are planning to graduate pretty soon, uh, then October 1st is the day to apply for graduation, is the last day to apply. All right, so here's how the structure of the class for grading will occur. So there will be 4 exams. So 3 exams generally, unless something changes, but generally I will cover 4 chapters. So the first exam will cover generally chapters 1 through 4, the second exam 5 through 8, and the third exam 9 through 12. Chapters 13, 14, and 15 will be included on the final exam, but the final exam is cumulative. So it will cover all of the chapters, all 15 chapters of the course. Don't get panicked, because the way that we will structure that is after each exam, we will spend time going over the exam and covering all of the correct answers so that you will have it as a study guide for the final exam. And then after that, of course, you should be able to study those as a study guide and cover anything other than 13 and 14 and 15, which we will cover before the exam. I don't do study guides. Now, it's not because I'm not willing to do it. It's just that we're going to cover everything in the class. You can have the textbook, which allows you to reinforce what we learned in the class. And I will also, because there's a recording, so you have the opportunity to capture everything that, again, theoretically is going to be on the exam. So a study guide would be nothing more than my outlining the things that we've talked about in class. So you'll already have 2 opportunities to do that. So there won't be a study guide. The assignments, and we'll go over those in a moment. The assignments, oh, I'm sorry. All of the exams are multiple choice. So they're multiple. I'm glad I made you happy, Reagan. So the exams are multiple choice, and they will be on Canvas, so they will actually be online. So you will take the exams online. They will average 40 to 50 questions per exam. And I will give you the majority of the class, actually an hour and 10 minutes. So you'll have an hour and 10 minutes for each of the exams. The assignments, there are 2 of them, and I'll go over those in a moment, but the assignments will count for 40% of your final grade. So each of those, of course, worth 20%. And then, of course, attendance will be 5%. So I will capture attendance by asking you those periodic questions where you respond to. And then when I look at the text for everyone who has responded to those, then I will mark that you were in attendance. If you don't respond to those, then I have to assume for a moment that you were not mentally in the class. Okay. Let's see. So it's a regular grading, 90 to 100, 80 to 89, 70 to 79, 60 to 69, and below. Now, another I consider good news, but we'll have to see what you think about it, is psychology is subjective. I mean, I realize that I'm going to have answers that I expect on an exam. However, sometimes maybe the translation during the lecture didn't come across appropriately, and maybe something that you understood uh, is different than what I expect as an answer on the exam. So I am not averse to a couple of things. One, if you, as we go over the exam, if you would like to present a viable argument for your answer that wasn't the one that I was looking for, then we can absolutely do that. I love debating. So if you'd like to discuss why you chose a particular answer, and it is formed in a way that I think there's credit, then of course I'll give you the credit for that, even though it may not be the most correct answer. But it has to be a viable argument. The other thing, because it's subjective, at the end of the semester, If you have participated in the class, meaning you have been in attendance the majority of the time, then if you are within 1 to 1.5 points of the next grade, then I will take the liberty of assessing that 1 to 1.5 points to move you to the next grade if you participated. If you've been in attendance and participated in the class, if you've got it at an 88.5 as your overall average, then I will push that to a 90, and I will do it for the other scores as well. Okay, so it'll allow some subjectivity. Now, with that being said, I don't offer makeup exams. So you will know, well, you'll see the syllabus. So it's pretty much scheduled now what the exam dates will be. So please be prepared for those. And again, be prepared for that hour. Now the assignments, let's look at those. So the assignments, again, there are two. And so the first assignment is you're going to write a childhood story. And that childhood story, of course, from an adult perspective. And whether you are a dual student or not, it doesn't matter to me. As far as I'm concerned, you're in a collegiate class, so all of you will be treated as adults. And so as an adult, I think you have a view that is different than what you would have had as a child. And I'll give you an example about how I look for an analysis of the assignments. So you submit your topic because only 3 students, no more than 3 students can do an assignment on the same topic. What I'm looking for is after we have completed chapters 1 through 7, I'd like for you to take a couple of theories, 2 or 3 theories out of those chapters and then apply those to whichever story you choose. These don't have to be American stories. They can be Islamic stories. They can be Buddhist stories. Whatever the childhood story you want to share, completely up to you what you choose. I don't have to know the story because you're going to explain it to me. So the way that that would work, for instance, and you won't be able to use Red Riding Hood. Yes, Reagan? Oh, you muted.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So when you say childhood story, do you mean like about our pasts or about a story that we grew up with?
A story you grew up with.
Uh,
Yeah, like, Sleeping Beauty, Three Little Pigs, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
mhm.
And
Thank
so,
you.
yeah, you're welcome. So for instance, Red Riding Hood, which is the one you can't use now because we're going to be talking about that one now. But Red Riding Hood, I mean, if we look at it as a child, telling that story to children, they believed that Red Riding Hood was not able to recognize her grandmother, simply because the wolf put on some glasses and a hood and a nightgown, right? As an adult, you could very easily see that, you know, uh, as well when the axeman came in at the end and chops the wolf open. Red Riding Hood and her grandmother in one version, jump out of the wolf's stomach and they're back alive, right? So even though the wolf swallowed them, and now the other piece is red being the most prolific color in the color spectrum. If Red Riding Hood was concerned about going through the forest and being concerned about the wolf attacking her, then why would you wear the color red? It draws the most attention, right? So those are the kind of nuances as an adult. You'd look at the story and said, no way, that's not that no, that can't happen. Well, psychologically, a child envisions things differently than an adult would. So your analysis is, how is it that that story now, as an adult, you look at it differently, contradicts what you believed as a child? Where are the areas of the story that no longer fit? And so we're going to talk about a lot of psychological principles that you can apply to your analysis, and that's what I look for in the assignment. Now, there will also be a rubric that will be put on I'll put it out there later today, but you've got almost 8 weeks before your first assignment is due. But there will be a rubric that you can look at, and it outlines what I look for in order to give you a particular grade. So the grades are generally in area 6-point increments. So from 95 to 100, 90 to 94 uh, only a 5-point increment, but then 85 to 89 and on down the spectrum. But the rubric will explain that to you. And then the second assignment is to write about a movie. So you get to pick the movie, whatever movie you want. And it doesn't matter if the movies are 1930s or 2020. It doesn't matter to me because you're going to apply the same principles. You're going to look at the either a character in the movie or the overall premise of the movie, and then based on that movie, talk about the psychological implications that are being addressed in that movie. That was pretty. I think that's more self-explanatory than the first. And again, now you're going to use the theories from chapters 8 through 15. So assignments can be turned in early. If the assignment is significantly early, then I'm not averse to providing some initial feedback. I won't say that the story's right or wrong, but I may give you feedback that says, I don't see the connection between the concept and psychological principle that you discuss, and or I think you've only mentioned the theory or the principle without fully explaining how it applies to the story that you chose. The papers are minimally 2 pages, and that's, even though that sounds like a lot, it really isn't, because the pages are double spaced. I mean, the writing is double spaced, and you're using Arial or Times New Roman with a 11-point font, so it's not a lot of writing. All of the papers are only submitted through Canvas, so I will turn on your assignment 1 today, and you submit it through Canvas, and I will give you a response and a grade through Canvas. If you miss the date, there is no late assignment, because again, you got 7 or 8 weeks to turn in the first assignment, and the last 7 or 8, oh, not 7 or 8 weeks, but last 5 to 7 weeks to turn in the second one. So there are no late assignments accepted. You're either in by the due date or it's not graded. Zoom, of course, is here, but that's also on Canvas, as I showed you. And the syllabus I will populate, excuse me, I will populate that today. I've already updated it, I just didn't put it in. But effectively every 4 chapters, matter of fact, I can do this because your schedule is very similar, except off by 1 date with one of the other classes. So I'll bring up their syllabus, or better yet, I think I updated yours, so I will bring it up so that we can look at the actual dates. Okay, let's go ahead. Files. Syllabus, okay. So again, you're only off by 1 date. So the psychology class for yesterday, but the structure of the class is going to be very similar because there are a Psych 200 class as well. All right, so, oh, that's right, I haven't shared it. Sorry, shared. Okay, so today, of course, we're going to do the introduction and the syllabus. We'll spend a couple of days on chapter 1 because it's an introductory chapter, but it has a lot of information in it. So we'll probably spend, and again, just update this by 1 day, and this is what you will see on your syllabus when I update it after the class. Chapter 2, now 9/7 is a Labor Day, but you guys are 9/8, so we'll still have class. And then we'll cover chapter 2 on a couple of days, and then chapters 3 and 4. So your chapter review, theoretically, because we'll move this out and it'll be 9/8, so we'll actually have chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. So we'll do the chapter review on around September 14th, and then we'll have the exam around September 16th. But again, I'm going to update all of this, so don't worry about writing it down right now. I'll have this update it as soon as we finish the class. We'll do the exam, and then after the exam, at the beginning of chapter 5, before we begin that, we'll go over the exam as I promised. We'll make sure that you're aware of all of the correct answers so that you can use that as a study guide for the final exam. And more than likely, we will only miss chapter 11. We probably will not include chapter 11 simply because chapter 11, even though it's on gender, if we, let's see, we're on Tuesday, Thursday, and we meet at 11:10. So on Tuesday, Thursday, your final exam is going to be on December 10th. And again, I'll update that here. So since December 10th is going to be your last day, as opposed to the 14th, that actually takes a couple of days out of the class. So moving that back, I've eliminated one chapter, which right now is chapter 11. But the rest of the flow of the class should pretty much be consistent with the flow and the number of days that we will spend on each of these chapters. October 12th, where is it? Oh, up here. Oh. Oh, 10 is October, sorry. Okay, so October 12th, which will be our October 13th, is a non-instructional day. So we won't have class on October 13th. And then of course, the 11/26 will be Thanksgiving, so we won't have class there either. All right, so those are really the only ones to be aware of. And again, I will update this for your syllabus after the class today. One of the areas, you can read the policies on your own, but one of the areas I do want to cover is the accommodations. The accommodations piece, let's see. The accommodations piece, if you have a different ability, or if you have a psychological issue that requires you to need more time to take an exam or more time for an assignment, assignments should be okay because you've got 7 or 8 weeks to turn that in. But on the exams, if you have test anxiety, or if you have a particular need that having just 1 hour to do 40 or 50 questions is overwhelming, then you can apply for an MOA, which is a memorandum of accommodation. If you are approved for the memorandum of accommodation, then based on your particular condition, you will be allowed additional time on the exam. As I said before, you'll get almost the entire class for the exam anyhow, but if you have an MOA, then there will be additional time added. I will populate the exam schedule with 2 exams. One will be regular exam, which will be the 1 hour and 10 minutes, and then the other will be whatever time is required for you based on your MOA. Yes, Reagan?
Open note or not open note for exams?
Well, you're going to be at home, so how would I know? Yeah. And that was, Reagan, I wanted to say that for the last 3 classes, but nobody gave me an opportunity to do it. So I'm not picking on you. I enjoyed that. But yeah, that's one of the reasons that I tend to only allow about 1 hour and 10 minutes for the exam, because that exists, that since you are virtual, there is the opportunity to go back and look through notes and try to find the answer. But with only 1 hour and 10 minutes, it only allows about a minute and 20 seconds per question. So I would think if you had to look up a large number of the answers, you may not finish the exam. And when the 1 hour and 10 minutes is up, it literally cuts off. The exam cuts off and I don't reopen it. So, but I can assure you that I'm going to give you probably more information than you want to understand all of these concepts. And in most of them, in most instances, I will give you a practical application or an example so that you can apply them and see specifically how the theory works and what is meant within that particular theory. So you should be okay without needing notes. I will offer this, and we'll talk about it much more, but for those of you who have test anxiety, for any of you who believe that knowing all of the theories and principles is difficult or too hard. One of the things that happens, just like fight or flight, is when you are afraid or in a high stress condition, the processing areas of your brain, the conscious processing areas of your brain, shuts down. So when you cram for an exam, you are doing yourself a disservice, because once you cram, you're creating a stress condition. So the processing area of your brain shuts down. So everything that you're trying to learn in that last half an hour just gets jumbled and you don't really learn anything. As well, if you create that condition, then the things that you know are going to be the things that you need to trust, which is why a lot of people say, trust your first answer. Because if you are in a stress condition, the amygdala takes over, the processing center shuts down, and then as you try to think, it just becomes jumbled and you will probably go with your second answer. And 80% of the time, changing an answer usually gets changed to the wrong answer. Okay, but that's just a little something for you guys. All right, so any questions on the syllabus or the structure of the class? Okay.
Yeah, you said that
Yes.
there's
No, please go right ahead.
for each question, like on the exams, did you
Mhm.
say that after a minute and 30 seconds, it like moves on to the next question? And we can't
Oh,
go
no, I'm sorry. No,
Okay.
I'm saying on average, because there's only going to be about, there's 40 to 50 questions on the exam. And so you only get an hour and 10 minutes.
Okay. Oh, so
And
you were
so
just
it,
splitting
yeah,
it
it
up.
averages out.
Okay.
Yeah. What you will also have, and that's a good point. Let me see. I didn't cover that, but that's a good point. You can answer the question and move on and then go back to the questions. So I don't lock the questions after you submit an answer. I don't lock them. I leave them open. So you can go back and review your answers if you'd like.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. But once it shuts down after the hour and 10 minutes, it doesn't get reopened. It literally shuts down. I've had some students who have had poor internet service, and periodically it freezes on them during the exam. That's unfortunate, but I have no way of validating that. So when I do the hour and 10 minutes, it's the hour and 10 minutes. So if you have poor internet service, try to find a location that you can get a good service for that hour to take the exam. So any other questions? Okay. All right, so I'm going to share with you a short video, and I like it because it talks about uh, how we are programmed and conditioned to be the persons that we are. And subsequently, those of you who have not excelled academically or not excelled in your career, not excelled in your experiences or relationships, a lot of that is subjective because we are influenced in a way that creates our personality. And once it's created, it tends to manifest itself for the rest of our lives, especially around the age of 19, plus or minus 2 years. Our personality becomes static. And we'll talk about that more, because I'm sure some of you are saying that, wait a minute, oh no, I've changed and I've grown, I've become a different person. Well, I'm not talking about your behavior. I'm talking about the core foundations of how you make decisions and even choose relationships. Because most of us around the age of 19, plus or minus a couple of years, we've created the construct of our morals, our ethics, and our beliefs. And the majority of the time, 90 to 95% of the time, whenever we're going to make a decision for ourselves or about someone else or even engaging with someone else, we leverage those three constructs to determine the decision that we will make. And so if that is our core belief, our core morals and ethics, then we tend to use that the rest of our lives. And again, we'll talk about it. Now, the only time that that changes is when you have a traumatic experience. But in the absence of a traumatic experience, your personality pretty much becomes static around the age of 19. Now, for those of you who say, well, wait a minute, I've done all these other things, yes, but those are behavioral, because behaviors are dependent on an interaction with something else. But internally, your personality construct determines the kinds of decisions that you will make and even the choices that you will make. And we'll look at those as we go across the class. All right, so I'm going to pull up this video. I'll share it with you. And then after that, we'll discuss some of the nuances of the video. And then we'll introduce chapter 1. Oh, and Regan, thank you. But what I would like for you guys to do, because there's about 34, 35 people in the class. So whenever you have a question, don't worry about raising the hand or anything. You can just unmute, and say you have a question. And as soon as we get to that point, I'll bring you in. So I don't
Gotcha,
want to,
thank you.
yeah, I don't want to miss your hand and you think I'm ignoring you.
I didn't want to be rude by interrupting.
No, I don't mind. Actually, the more conversations I have, the more I like the class. So we're all good. Okay. Okay.
The conscious mind is a creative mind. The subconscious mind is a programmed mind, a habit mind. I'd like to discuss the nature about how our life has been programmed and how these programs control our life, our vitality, and our behavior in the world. Recognize this. If you buy a new computer and you turn it on, the built-in operating system prepares it to work. But if there are no programs in that computer, then the computer can't really do anything. Well, let's now relate this to a child. When the brain develops, it's got an operating system, but there are no programs in it. So nature created the first 7 years of our lives to download behaviors by observing our parents, our siblings, and our community. And in this way, a child can learn all the behavioral characteristics necessary to be a functional member of a family and a functional member of a community. Well, however, since we are downloading the programs by observing other people, what happens if we download programs from our parents or our family and siblings that are not very positive programs, that are actually very negative programs that have an adverse effect on our health? Well, it turns out science has revealed that during the first 7 years of our life, our brain is designed to download programs just by observing other people. It's a state of hypnosis, which is a characteristic of a brain frequency called theta, which is just below consciousness. The first 7 years of a child's life is installing the programs that when consciousness kicks in at around age 7, consciousness has use of programs to create the behavior in their relationships, in their family, community, etc. We now know about 70% of those programs that we download from others are negative and disempowering and even self-sabotaging. And as we go through our life, you'd say, well, where are these programs? I say, well, they're in the subconscious mind. And then you say, but what's the other mind? I say, the conscious mind, that's the one that kicks in at age 7. That mind is connected to your personal identity, your spirituality. And the difference between the two is profound. The conscious mind is a creative mind. The subconscious mind is a programmed mind, a habit mind. So I say, why is it relevant? I say, well, if you're running from the conscious mind, then you're creating your life from wishes and desires and aspirations. However, if your life is under the control of the subconscious mind, it's just going to play back the programs that you downloaded from other people. Well, since other people didn't plan your wishes and your desires, the download you get may not even allow you to get into the life that you really wish for. So here comes the important issue. Are we running our lives with a conscious mind, or are we running our lives with the subconscious programs? Well, it turns out science has revealed that only 5% of the day are we operating our nervous system using the conscious mind's creative wishes and desires. 95% of the day, our life is coming straight out of the programs in our subconscious. The reason why this is happening is that when conscious mind is controlling our biology, it's sort of like a driver holding the wheel, taking us into the direction we want to go, our wishes and desires. However, when we are thinking, conscious mind has to let go of the wheel and go inside the brain. Why? Thought is an inside job. It's not outside. So what happens when consciousness is thinking? It's not driving the vehicle. I said, well, then what happens to the vehicle, our body, when consciousness is thinking? I go, subconscious is autopilot. So the moment we start thinking, Biology is taken over by the programs that we acquired in the subconscious. Now here comes the problem. 95% of the day we're operating from these programs, and the vast majority of them are disempowering and self-sabotaging downloads. So we're not leading a life that takes us towards wishes and desires. We're leading a life that manifests the issues that we downloaded from other people, mostly negative. And therefore we struggle through life. And I say, well, why is there a struggle? I said, because you're not operating from wishes and desires any longer. You're operating from the habits you got from other people. So this becomes a very profound issue, because it says then the life that we're leading has already been controlled by the downloaded programs. This is not a new idea. For 400 years, the Jesuits have told their followers, give me a child until age 7 and I will show you the man. What they were saying was actually telling people, if you give me an opportunity to download programs in the first 7 years, that will determine the child's rest of its life. Why? Because 95% of a person's life is coming from those programs. So the issue now is facing is, what should we do with these programs? And the first issue is, what are the programs? Why? Because they were being downloaded in the last trimester of pregnancy and all the way through the first 7 years of life. So basically, you weren't there when you were in the womb. And if I asked you what program did you get when you were 0, 1, or 2 years of age, you go, I have no idea, because consciousness wasn't even engaged at that point. So the first thing you need to know is, what controls your life? 95% from the programs. Yeah, but what are the programs? And here comes a simple insight. 95% of your life is coming from the program, so your life is a printout of the programs downloaded in your subconscious mind. And so significance is easy. Look at your life. The things you love and desire and wish for that come into your life, they come in because the subconscious has programs to acknowledge that. But here's the more important part. Where you struggle in your life, where you want to have a certain outcome, but you work hard for it, you put a lot of effort into it, you're sweating over it to make something happen. Why are you struggling so hard to create those wishes and desires? And the answer is very simple. The programs that you were downloaded with do not support those ends. So as a result, your behavior is sabotaging you. And then this is the link and the catch for all of it is, when you are playing subconscious programs, why are you playing them? Because conscious mind is inside thinking. And as a result, conscious mind is not observing the behavior that's coming out from the program. And since most of those programs are self-sabotaging and disempowering, you yourself don't even see that you're engaged in the process, because subconscious is playing that and conscious mind's not observing it. And why this then becomes important is, it's necessary for you to understand these programs, because we can change those programs. And when we change the programs in the subconscious, we rewrite the character of our lives. While the conscious mind is a creative mind, it can learn in any number of ways. Reading a self-help book, watching this particular video, going to a lecture. You can easily download new knowledge into the conscious mind. The significance is the conscious mind is creative and it can be very smart. But the issue is, downloading new knowledge into the conscious mind does not change the program in the subconscious. It's a different mind and learns in a completely different way. The subconscious mind is the habit mind. And by definition, we don't want to change habits very easily, especially, for example, consider, when did you learn how to walk? Before you were 2. I don't care what age you are at, almost all of us never have to relearn how to walk. And I say, well, thank you, subconscious mind, because you downloaded the habit of walking, and it tries to resist any change to that. But when you get a negative belief, it also tries to resist change. So the issue is this: how can I put programs into the subconscious mind, new ones to replace the ones that are sabotaging me? And the answer is this: there are only 3 ways that you can rewrite subconscious mind. The first way is through hypnosis. This is the process that you downloaded programs in the first 7 years. So every night when you go to bed, just when your conscious mind falls asleep, your subconscious mind is in operation. So if you put earphones on as you go to bed and hear a program, it's not going into the conscious mind, but it's going straight into the subconscious mind and can reprogram it. How do you get new programs after age 7? Repetition, practice. Anything you needed to learn, you had to repeat it and repeat it to create a habit. So if you want to change a habit that's not supporting you, you have to engage a habit that does support you. If you're not a happy person, you can say every day, no matter how unhappy you are, you say to yourself repetitively, I am happy, I am happy. Over the day, you keep saying that. Guess what? Repetition, habituation will change the program, and one day you'll wake up and guess what? Your subconscious mind's already got a I am happy program. And lastly, the most effective way to change subconscious programming is through energy psychology. These are mechanisms that enhance super learning, and therefore you can download new behaviors in matters of minutes. To understand super learning energy psychology and how it works, on my website, brucelipton.com, under resources, I have over 25 different energy psychology modalities that you can review and identify one that feels the best to you, because using these new processes, you can rewrite your beliefs and radically change the character of your life in matters of minutes.
Okay. What's also interesting is that Dr. Lipton is considered the father or the founder of stem cell research. So his work as a medical doctor, he was actually a medical doctor and taught at one of the major universities to new medical students, but realized that with stem cell research and the idea of epigenetics, that you could change the signatures associated with certain gene structures. And by changing the nature of those gene structures, you could change some of the outcomes that were initially programmed into your life. So it's interesting. So if you want to look at it some more, again, this is going to be on the video, so you'll be able to see it again if you'd like. Let's see. So with that, any questions on any of that? No? Okay. So we'll go into chapter 1 and start there. Let's see here. Okay, first question for today. Did you enjoy the video?
Yes.
My head's spinning.
It feels wild. It's like, all right, I thought I knew my own mind. I thought I knew a lot of this. This video comes along like, hello, you thought you knew about yourself? Let me throw that to the curbside. Enjoy.
I feel like my whole life's been turned upside down. My brain hurts.
That's okay, because we are going to talk much more about this idea of conditioning and programming and all of those. I think chapter 6 or 7, when we talk about classical and operant conditioning, you're going to see specifically how through your childhood, through your life, your teenage years, and some of your adult years, you have been influenced to adapt certain behaviors. And when you see scenarios or environments or cultures that duplicate that experience, you automatically respond a certain way. And so we'll talk about that a lot more. But again, I like the thought of Dr. Lipton. I have some research that I'm doing that doesn't contradict it, but it changes the nature of some of the age relevance. But we'll look at that later. Okay, so chapter 1. Okay, so you should have chapter 1 on the screen now. And so introduction and research methods. So even if we think about what Dr. Lipton talks about, let's look at that. There are people who have had negative experiences in their childhood. They've had negative experiences in their even as a baby or in that environment, and then they went to school or high school or something like that, had bad experiences, and a lot of people carry those with them the rest of their lives. Some psychological disorders are genetic, but a lot of them are also influenced by environment. So if we look at those nuances, how do we as psychologists determine that a certain event will most often lead to the same outcome? How do we have the ability to recognize certain behaviors and even expressions that people have that will also, for the most part, dictate what the response or the outcome is going to be to that? And so as we look at chapter 1, not only are we going to talk about how the beginning of psychology really was fostered in as a legitimate science, which it wasn't from the beginning, but also what types of scientific research and methods had to be used in order to validate these theories that many people have posited. A lot of you have probably heard of Sigmund Freud. So we're gonna talk about Freud. We're gonna talk about Maslow, Rogers. We're gonna talk about Carl Jung. So a lot of these theories that now have application, we're going to talk about how it relates not only to the field of psychology, but to your own lives. And even as a beginning, again, the idea of psychology, what I would posit is this, and I think I changed the screen, but I can get it back. There's something else I want to put. So this is going to be the nature. I'm going to write something here, and this is going to be the nature of all of our conversations, pretty much. So from birth, and even prior to birth, we have experiences. Now, we don't have to be aware of what those experiences are, because as Lipton said, when you are in the womb, during the fetal and embryo and fetal stage, there's a genetic process that's occurring that is completely subconscious. I mean, if you think about it, when you build a house, you have certain rooms that are going to be bedrooms, but they show you the blueprint, and you decide from that blueprint if that's the foundational structure that you want for your house, right? So you don't get to change that. The blueprint becomes the model for how it gets built. And so if you think, now Sean, you look pretty tall. So are you 6 feet, maybe? No?
Me?
No, Sean.
No.
What are you, 5'10", 5? Oh, do I have 2 Seans? Sorry. Okay, so
I
Sean
don't know
Guzman.
my height exactly.
Okay, what is it?
Yes.
What is it? Do you mind sharing?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
I'm not
Okay.
sure, really. No.
Okay, that's all right. So I'm going to say that Sean is 7 feet. All right. So, all right, Sean now became 7 feet. All right, but it doesn't matter, right? Because when you are an embryo at conception, we have no idea what color hair we're going to have, what color eyes, how tall we're going to be, how large we're going to be, short. We have no idea, because the blueprint is structured from 23 chromosomes from mom and 23 chromosomes from dad. Those 46 chromosomes become the blueprint for our DNA. And that defines, in this nuclear fusion, it defines who we are ultimately going to be. So whether you have dark hair, blonde hair, red hair, whatever color hair, natural color hair, blue eyes, brown eyes, black eyes, green eyes, doesn't matter. Any of those are already predisposed when you are in the embryonic stage. So that blueprint has already constructed you without you ever knowing what you're going to be. And that's the same thing. So even in the womb, we have experiences as a result of genetic construction. Well, those experiences become localized into information. And that's all it is. So information simply becomes a snippet, a subset of our experiences. So think of a smile. What does a smile represent to you?
Happiness.
Happy.
Okay, happiness. Anything else?
Positivity.
I'm sorry.
Positivity.
Okay, positivity, right?
Normally happiness, but it depends on other elements of a person's face. Because it could be a cruel smile.
Okay. Could be a cool smile, could be a cruel smile, right? Have you ever had somebody who smiles at you because they're about to try to get over on you?
I've
Well,
seen
they're
I
that on a
think that's
TV
called a
show.
smirk. I think that's called a smirk, actually. Hold on.
Well, if I think that my scheme is actually working, it'll be a smile, but it's a genuine smile for my deviant behavior and not one for positivity, right?
I
There's
think
a
it's called a
character.
smirk at that point.
There's
Yeah,
a
but
character in
well,
a TV show I love that whenever he's about to get really angry, his face goes out into a smile.
yeah. And I will
Wait,
give
what?
you a real example. I have one of my first cousin uh, almost beat a guy to death. The entire time that he was beating him, he was smiling. So now think of that. So again, and the reason I use that is because a smile is simply a piece of information that has no context until you put it in an associative environment, right? So like you guys said, if it's a sly smile, a smirk, then the context of the situation promotes that smirk. If it's someone who's happy or showing positive natures, it's as a result of the environment of the culture being pleasing. So a smile by itself has no context until you add it into an environment. So the information about a smile simply is that a smile represents something. Well, that information, we take that information and then we store it into our memory. Once it's stored in memory, now all of that information, which would be associative information. So if the last time I smiled was because I got a good present for my birthday, then if I get something that reminds me of that birthday, I smile. If the last time I saw a smile, it was someone being devious, then that association will change the nature of my smile and what that smile means to me. So once it's stored in memory, we have the ability to access that information. And by accessing that information, it then, well, let me put it here below. By accessing that information and all the associated experiences with it, it now becomes knowledge. Now that knowledge represents the context, the concept. Because I now have knowledge with context, that knowledge drives the decisions that I will make. And those decisions, the choices that I make, then influence my behavior. And that behavior, because it's an interaction or at least a projection of interaction towards someone else, now creates new experiences, right? So the cycle continues. So if you want to think of this, this is the cycle of mind and behavior. Our experiences give us new things to think about. Those things are stored in memory so that we can access them later. That access with associative information creates a knowledge base, which includes all of the stuff that happened. And then that stuff leads me to make a decision or to make a choice. That choice influences how I'm going to respond, my behavior associated with that choice. And it will continue for the entirety of our lives. Right? So when you think of this idea of influence and genetic behavior and our learning, all of that stuff is influenced through one of these 6 stages. Okay. So using that, going back to this topical area, using just the 2 gentlemen in the slide, if you are or aren't familiar with Michael Jordan is considered the greatest of all time related to basketball. Now, we won't get into a debate about LeBron and Kobe and all of that. The majority still think that Michael Jordan is the GOAT, greatest of all time. All right. But in the 10th grade, Michael Jordan was cut from the basketball team. His coach said he wasn't good enough to make the team. So think about that experientially. Some of us, and I'll ask this question, I'll type this in the chat room. Answer in the chat room. How many of you like math? So answer in the chat. You can just put yes or no.
What was
But
the
in the-
question again?
How many of you like math? M-A-T-H. So just respond in the chat room if you like math or not.
I thought you said meth, and I had to do a double take.
No, M-A-T-H, not M-E-D-H.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's chapter 12.
I am
Okay.
gonna really enjoy this class.
Okay, good.
Wait,
So-
what are we cooking up in chapter 12 then?
Oh, I like it, Patrick. Nice. Nice play on words. All right. So, but think about it. Some of you don't like math for no other reason other than you had a bad experience with it. You either had a bad teacher, or for some particular reason, you didn't score well on your math test, arithmetic, or whatever it was, or someone chastised you as you were trying to learn it. And subsequently, that experience led you to believe that math is either complex, useless, or something that I don't want to waste time with. And so now, as a result, habituation over time has said, nope, I'm staying away from math. I'm majoring in anything where I don't have to take a mathematics class. I'll use the entire word, right? And then other people who had great experiences with it now are doing differential calculus, right? Because there's a different associated value assessed to mathematics. And so some like it, some don't. But I would say with almost complete certainty that the average mathematics is algebra, maybe algebra 1. And unless there's a psychological disorder that precludes your ability to do math, absolutely everyone could excel up through algebra 1. If we change the nature of the thought associated with it. So just like with Michael Jordan could have said, oh, the coach, he knows basketball, but he cut me from the team. So maybe I need to pick out another profession. Basketball's not for me. He could have given up. But instead, his dad said he worked harder than anyone he's ever seen. And so, of course, by his senior year, 2 years later, he's the #1 draft pick for the NCAA. And after 1 or 2 years at North Carolina, he becomes the top draft pick for the NBA. And after 10 years, one of the only persons to ever achieve it, only teams, but the Bulls won 6 championships. And he was averaging 30 to 40 points per game. That is absolutely unheard of, right? So you go from this being diminished to being the greatest, right? And that's the nature of it. And President Obama, who's also shown in the picture, was not considered a gifted student. Matter of fact, he was considered an average or just below average student in high school. So how do you go from being average to below average to graduating #1 from law school in one of the prestigious universities in the world, right? Because you don't become the editor of the law review unless you're the #1 in the class, right? So think about those dynamics and how they can change. Well, what we have to do as psychologists is also do experimentation so that we can validate these changes to say, in these particular conditions, these outcomes can occur. And in these other conditions, there's a lower probability that these outcomes will occur. And that's what we'll take a look at. That's what we'll take a look at just in chapter 1, and then we'll expand on that as we get into the other chapters. So we won't go further than here. Matter of fact, I'm going to do this chart, and then we're going to end the day. But increases your chance for personal, academic, and professional success. Well, personal success, because each of us has either a barrier that we have held on to, or we have this idea, this concept that's related to our level of self-confidence and self-awareness. Some people are really gifted at going in and talking to other people. Some people are really afraid of that. Well, psychology helps us understand the dynamics of our thoughts and behaviors and our emotions. So the more aware you are of those dynamics, the more likely it is that you can minimize the impact, the negative impact of those. Academically, because we're going to talk about how you think, why you think the way you do, what promotes thinking and what demotes thinking. Professional success, because unless you're going to an island and going to be the only person there, you are going to have to interact with someone else. So understanding the nature of behavior is going to promote your ability to interact with people more successfully and even make choices about not wanting to deal with them at all. But understanding yourself and others is going to, I think, and it is, and I will use myself as an example, the things that I have been able to achieve as a motivational speaker, as a professional speaker, as a professor, all of those things would never have started when I was in junior high school because I didn't have that level of confidence. But I was able to integrate certain things that made me choose different paths. And now I won't, in my mind, I'm very successful, and that's not based on money or anything else. It's my own happiness. And so as a global citizen, because of course, as you know, we're not in Kansas anymore. There's a lot of people with different religions, different beliefs, different backgrounds, different opinions, different perspectives. And the interaction of those is going to be either more positive, depending on how you understand the nature of behavior, or less positive. Last statement, and then I will ask if there are any questions. If you have followed the political scene, and I honestly don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, Tea Party, Boston Party, I don't care. But if you look at the interaction between people where you have to be 100% for them or you're against them, the nature of psychology, right? As we look at the dynamics of this interactive set that we have called a political scene, and the number of people who are unwilling to debate, discuss, or even accept a different perspective. That's the kind of stuff we're going to talk about. All right, so that's good enough for government work for me today. So are there any questions before we close out? Okay. Like I said, what I will do in about 15 minutes, it takes about 15 minutes to download the recording. I will create a YouTube video of it, and I will send the link out through email with, so if you choose to look at this again, you can, but at least it will be available to you as a YouTube, so you don't have to search for it in the cloud recording. Yes, Sean?
Okay, if we haven't purchased the book yet,
Mhm.
do we have to buy it like now? Because I know that it's probably gonna take a week for the book to arrive by mail.
No,
So
I
is
think you'll be
there-
okay. You'll be okay if you don't
Okay.
have it, if you don't have it yet. Because, like I said, 95% of the class is going to come from the PowerPoints, and these PowerPoints are tied directly to the book. So if you don't have it yet, it's a good supplement to have, but you'll get the majority of the information simply with what we talk about in class.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
You're most welcome. Okay, guys. Well, enjoy, and let's see. I will see you on Thursday.
Have a nice
See ya.
day.
Thank you.
Thank
Ciao.
you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye. Have a good day.
And this has been a very enjoyable first class. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I look forward to Thursday. And some more
Oh, trust me, you can
language-
rely on me for puns. Yes, puns are
Okay.
kind of second nature. Take care,
Well,
y'all.
And the good news is I get to record them all. So
Oh no, you get to steal them for the future.
that's right.
Oh no,
Take
what
care,
have I
guys.
unleashed?
Enjoy. Have a good day.